Never drive Colorado's million-dollar highway without seeing this first. On Sunday, March 3, 1963, a minister named Marvin Hudson was driving to work. He had a pastorate in Silverton, Colorado, and the only way to reach it from the north is US 550 over Red Mountain Pass. His 2 daughters were in the car with him. It was a Sunday morning. He was going to church. There was no crash. Nobody lost control. Nobody was speeding. Nobody made a bad decision at a corner. The 3 of them were simply on the road, in a car, driving. The mountain came down on them. A marker stands on that highway today. It says they were swept to their deaths 1,000 feet north of it, in the East Riverside Slide, while he was answering the call of his pastorate in Silverton. Next to that marker is a second one. That one is for the highway workers, for the men who died trying to keep the same stretch of road open. Its inscription is 1 line long, and it is the reason for this entire video. The lonely vigil of the night is known only to these men of courage. 6 people have been killed by that single avalanche path. A minister, his 2 daughters, and 3 snowplow drivers. Coming up, a highway with no guardrail on a 300-foot drop, and the deliberate reason it does not have one. A plow driver who quit after 5 winters because he had done the arithmetic. And the reason the deadliest season on this road is not the one you would guess. So here is the quiet contradiction at the heart of this road. The people who maintain it will tell you plainly that it is safe. Picture the drive the way you would actually make it. You leave Array at 7,700 feet, and the road climbs into the Uncompahgre Gorge, hugging a cliff face on a 2-lane ribbon that was blasted out of rock. It tops out at Red Mountain Pass, 11,018 feet. Below you is a canyon. Beside you, in long stretches, is nothing at all. It is routinely called one of the most spectacular drives in the world, and that is not marketing. It genuinely is. Now here is what the Colorado Department of Transportation has said about it, in public, when asked why it is not safer. That the highway is safe, that speed limits are necessarily slow, and that the kind of high-speed crashes that kill people elsewhere simply do not happen here. That drivers treat this road carefully and cautiously because they can see exactly what it is. And they are right. That is what makes this whole thing so strange. Danger you can see, you slow down for. Ice makes the wheel go light in your hands. Fog you watch closing in. Your foot lifts off the gas before your brain has finished the thought. This road is the most visible danger in America, and people still die on it. And here is the one fact I want you to hold on to, because we come all the way back to it at the end. The deadliest thing on this highway is not the cliff, and it is not the snow. Hold on to that one. Start with what the road actually is, because it is older than almost anybody realizes. Here is the wildcard fact. You are not driving a modern highway. At many points, you are driving a toll road from 1883. That original route was a cliff-hanging wonder cut by hand out of the Uncompahgre Gorge in the 1880s to serve the mines. When the state took the road over around 1920, it was reconstructed on its present grade, widened and graveled for motor vehicles, and opened in 1922. It has been improved many times since. But the line it follows, the actual path along the rock, is in many places the line a 19th century toll road builder chose. Now compare that to how a mountain highway gets built today. Modern alignments cut through ridges rather than wrapping around them. They use long tunnels, big radius curves, engineered runoff, and a design speed somebody calculated on paper before a single machine moved. This road wraps. It follows what the mountain would allow, because in 1883 there was no alternative. That is why the posted and advisory speeds drop as low as 10 miles an hour in places, and why a stretch you would cover in 20 minutes anywhere else takes an hour here. The pavement is modern, the geometry is Victorian, and every curve on it was set by men with black powder and mules. Which brings us to the thing everybody notices first. Here's the wildcard fact. On long sections of this highway, on the outside of the lane, above a drop of hundreds of feet, there is no guardrail. And that is not an oversight or a funding failure. It is a decision. The reason is snow. This is one of the snowiest highway corridors in the country, and the road has to stay open through it. Plows clearing Red Mountain Pass need somewhere to put enormous volumes of snow, and the only place available on a road cut into a cliff is over the edge. A guardrail would turn that open edge into a wall, and the plowed snow would build up against it, narrow the driving lane storm by storm, and eventually close the road entirely. So the state made a trade, openly. An unguarded edge in exchange for a road that stays open in winter. Now compare that to the guardrail on any interstate you have driven. That barrier exists because engineers assumed you would leave your lane. It is designed around human error as a certainty, not a possibility. Here, that assumption is reversed. This road is built on the premise that you will not make a mistake. And there is a second consequence that almost nobody thinks about until it applies to them. When a vehicle does go over, it is not a recovery. It is a technical rope rescue. The Ouray Mountain Rescue Team has hauled survivors up out of that gorge using ropes strung across the canyon because there is no other way to reach the canyon floor and no way to get a person back up to the pavement without one. That takes trained volunteers, equipment, and time, and the time is the part that matters, because a person 350 feet below the road is nowhere near an ambulance no matter how quickly one arrives. Compare that to going off a highway almost anywhere else, where a crew walks down an embankment to reach you. Hundreds of feet of drop, no barrier, and a design that quietly puts the entire margin of safety inside your own hands. And then there is what comes down from above. Here is the wildcard fact. This is regularly described as the most avalanche-prone highway in America, and the stretch between Silverton and Ouray is only 23 miles long. In that distance, when conditions line up, avalanches can reach almost every section of it. The paths have names because there are enough of them to need names: East Riverside, West Riverside, Battleship, and dozens more. One spring night, more than 60 avalanches crossed a 5-mile stretch of this road. Ouray got 4 feet of snow, 60 slides, 5 miles, one night, and the East Riverside is the one that has done the killing. It runs a mile down the side of Abrams Mountain, and it has historically been the area of greatest concern on the entire highway. It is the slide that took Marvin Hudson and his daughters. It has been called the most murderous avalanche in Colorado. Here's what makes it different from every other hazard on this list. Everything else out here is a consequence of something you did, a lane you drifted out of, a corner you took too fast. An avalanche is not. It is the mountain acting on its own schedule, and your driving has no input into it whatsoever. The only defense is knowing when not to be there, which is exactly why people had to stand out in it, in the dark, to find out. 23 miles, dozens of named paths, and one of them with 6 names attached to it, which is why the people who died here most often were not tourists. Here is the wildcard fact. The primary casualties of Red Mountain Pass for decades were the highway workers. In 1978, a snowslide killed a plow driver named Terry Kishbaugh. He was 28, a husband and a father of 3. It took 3 months to recover his body, and a colleague described the truck as smashed like a toy. That colleague was Lloyd Berry, also a plow driver, also a father of 3. Later that same year, Berry retired, and what he said on the way out is the most clear-eyed sentence anybody has said about this road. He said it was his 5th winter, that 5 winters on Red Mountain Pass were all he was willing to risk, and that the way he figured it, after 5, the odds of surviving got too short. He was not being dramatic. He was doing math out loud about his own life and then acting on the answer. 14 years later, before sunrise on March 5, 1992, a storm sat over the San Juans. Snow loaded the high-angled slope above the pass, and about once an hour the East Riverside let go. A crew of 6 from CDOT sheltered under the road's one snow shed while the slides came over the top of it. Eddie Eimel was the foreman of that crew. He was killed that night by the East Riverside. He was the 3rd plow driver to die on the same 100 feet of highway. 3rd man, same slide path, same 100 feet of road. And that is why the engineering that exists here exists. Here is the wildcard fact. The snow shed those men sheltered under was built in 1985, a concrete overpass that lets the avalanche run over the top of the road instead of across it. It is not a tunnel for the view. It is a roof for the slide. And it worked. It has greatly reduced the impact of snowslides at that crossing, and combined with modern avalanche forecasting, the pass now often goes an entire winter without closing for more than a few hours at a time. But look closely at the sequence, because it is the same sequence everywhere. The Hudson family died in 1963. The snow shed was built in 1985. That is 22 years, and Terry Kishbaugh died inside that gap. And the science of forecasting this corridor advanced largely because of the losses. And even after the shed went up, Eddie Eimel died in 1992, sheltering beneath it, because a structure protects the road it covers and nothing else. Compare that to how safety improvements usually get funded. A hazard is identified, ranked against other hazards, and it waits its turn. Out here, the ranking was written by people who are already dead. A concrete roof, 22 years, and a forecasting program built out of funerals. But here is where everything you have just heard becomes misleading. Here's the wildcard fact. In one recent year on Red Mountain Pass, the fatal crashes came in August. On August 5th, a car went off the highway near mile marker 88 and rolled roughly 350 feet into the canyon. 2 adults from New Mexico were killed. A juvenile relative survived. 2 days later, 3 miles away, a 78-year-old woman survived a roll off the same road. On August 23rd, a 65-year-old woman died when her motorcycle left the pavement and went into the canyon. Then a pickup truck fell 300 feet off the north side of the pass between mile markers 88 and 89. That driver walked away with minor injuries, hauled back up to the road by the Ouray Mountain Rescue Team on a rope system. August, dry pavement, clear weather, peak season. There was no avalanche, there was no ice, there was no storm. There was a beautiful road on a beautiful day, and a series of vehicles that left it. Best month of the year, best conditions of the year, and the canyon collecting cars anyway. And there is one more hazard here that runs on no season at all. Here's the wildcard fact. In January of one recent year, rocks began falling onto US 550 on the north side of Red Mountain Pass, and the state closed the highway for more than 2 weeks. The cause was ordinary weather. Cold nights and warm days created a freeze and thaw cycle that worked water into the rock, expanded it, and pried loose a huge section of mountainside, which then broke apart into thousands of boulders above the road. CDOT closed it because those boulders were capable of coming through a windshield at terminal velocity. Now consider what a 2-week closure means out here, because it is not an inconvenience. This is one of only 2 routes into Silverton. Shutting it cut the town's tourism roughly in half for the duration, in a former mining town where tourism is most of what is left. That is the bind this highway lives in permanently. Close it and a town starts losing money that day. Keep it open and you are asking a plow crew to work under an active slide path in the dark. Every decision on this road is made between those 2 things, and there is no third option. Falling rock, freeze and thaw, and a town on the far side of it waiting for the road to reopen. So here is the actual answer. Every danger you naturally respect hands you a signal your body already knows. Ice makes the wheel go light. Fog you watch closing in. A curve you can see coming. Rain you hear on the roof. Your foot comes off the gas before you have consciously decided anything. This road gives you all of those signals at once, constantly, for an hour. And that turns out to be the problem. Because a hazard you can see does something to a driver that a hidden one does not. It gets watched. That drop beside your door is not merely dangerous, it is spectacular. It is the reason people drive from other states to be here. The reason the road is on lists of the world's great drives. The reason there is a camera in the passenger's hands. The scenery is not a distraction from the road. On this highway, the scenery is the destination, and every second of attention it takes is taken from a lane about 10 feet wide with no barrier on one side. That is why the fatal crashes cluster in August rather than February. In winter, this road terrifies people, and terrified people drive extremely well. They slow down. They stop talking. They put both hands on the wheel. CDOT is telling the truth when it says drivers here are careful, in the conditions where being careful is obviously required. In August, it is warm and dry and gorgeous, and the same road stops feeling like a threat and starts feeling like an attraction. Nothing about the geometry changed, only the driver did. And here's the part that makes it unforgiving. On an ordinary road, a moment of inattention costs you a jolt on a rumble strip. Here, the shoulder is the edge is a cliff, and there is no barrier, because the plows need that gap to keep the road alive in winter. Which means the compromise that keeps this highway open in February is the same compromise that empties a car into the canyon in August. So if you are ever the one making this drive, and plenty of you will, do the small, unglamorous things. Drive it northbound, from Silverton to Ouray, if the choice is yours. That puts you on the inside lane against the mountain wall rather than the outside lane against the drop. Use the pullouts. There are plenty, and every photograph worth having can be taken from one of them. Take the advisory speeds literally. When a sign here says 10, it means 10. And do not treat winter as the dangerous season and summer as the safe one. Treat the good weather as the thing that lowers your guard, because the record says that is exactly what it does. None of that is exciting. All of it works. Come back one last time to that Sunday morning in March of 1963. A minister driving over a pass to reach his own congregation, with his 2 daughters in the car, on a road he must have driven dozens of times. There was nothing to react to. There was no decision available to him. And that is the real number here. Not 11,018 feet, not 60 avalanches in a night, not 350 feet to the canyon floor. It is 6 people on one slide path. It is a body that took 3 months to recover. It is a man who counted 5 winters and decided that was as far as the odds would stretch. It is a crew standing under a concrete roof in the dark, listening to the mountain come over the top of them once an hour and going back out anyway. It is a woman in Ouray who babysat a plow foreman's children on the night he did not come home and who says she will never forget it. And it is his daughter, decades later, saying she keeps running across stories about her father in this pass and that it makes her happy his service was not forgotten. He loved his job. Now remember what I asked you to hold on to. The deadliest thing on this highway is not the cliff, and it is not the snow. It is a beautiful day, because a bad day on Red Mountain Pass makes you into a better driver instantly and without any effort on your part. Fear does that. It narrows you down to the next 100 feet of pavement, and it keeps you there. A good day gives all of that back and asks you to hold it yourself. The mountain out there is not hunting anybody. It has never needed to. It sheds what it is carrying on its own schedule, the way it has since long before there was a road, and the road is simply in the way. Cut into a gorge by men in 1883 who had no better option and no illusions about what they were doing. Which brings us back to the title of this video, and to the thing you should see first. It is not a viewpoint, and it is not a warning sign. It is 2 small markers standing beside US 550 near the Riverside snow shed. One for a family, swept away 1,000 feet from where the stone stands. One for the men who died keeping the road open, with that single line on it about the lonely vigil of the night. Stop there. It takes 2 minutes. Everything the highway is about to ask of you is written on those 2 stones, in the plainest possible language, by the people who paid for the information, and then drive the rest of it like somebody who read them.